Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is Tali Reiner-Brodetsky. I'm one of the co-founders of Hope for Israel Alliance in Philadelphia. I know we have many people on this Zoom call from all over, so please let us know in the chat where are you joining us from. Before we get started, just a few notes. If anyone needs captioning, we have those available. If you have any questions throughout the webinar or require any assistance, please place those in the Q&A and our technical support will assist you. Today's webinar is brought to you by Hope for Israel Alliance, HAA, and the American Israel Democracy Coalition, AID Coalition. HAA is a Zionist grassroots activist movement formed following October 7. AID Coalition is a US-based organization dedicated to strengthening and preserving the democratic foundations of the State of Israel. To learn more about our organizations, please follow the links in the chat. Great to see you all. I see we have people from, let's see who's here, from Las Vegas and London and Philly. Hi, everybody. Today, we mark 635 days since 50 hostages have been taken and held in hell. With the news of a possible new hostage deal, we are honored to have with us incredible women who have been leading the fight for their return. Dalia and Dana, thank you for being here. But first, let me introduce Tal Schneider, who will lead today's conversation. Tal is the leading political and diplomatic correspondent of the Times of Israel. She's also a leading Israeli analyst and has written for many Israeli papers, including Ma'ariv, Haaretz, and more. She was also a former Washington, D.C. correspondent for Ma'ariv. Tal, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening for wherever you are. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be the host of this session, a very important one. As probably you may all know, the Israeli public is very busy and concerned and worried about the hostages in Gaza. It's #1 topic in Israel, and there is a huge support of the public for an end to the war in exchange for whole hostages to be back home. That's a very important note to take from this conversation. Whatever you hear, whatever you read, if you listen to either ministers or prime minister or the president of the United States, please remember 70% of the Israeli public are saying, poll after poll, that they want to see all hostages back home in exchange for the end of the war. That's #1 topic here at all times. Tali, do you want me to proceed to begin the discussion? Okay.
Go ahead.
So as said, we are very busy with that. I participated last Saturday in the rally, the weekly rally that is taking place in Tel Aviv in Hostage Square for the strife and the effort to bring all the hostages back. It was an incredible amount of people that came that Saturday, exactly at the end of the Iranian war, 12 days war, during which we were not allowed to gather in public places. But as soon as it ended, people took to the streets yet again to work and do something so they can bring the hostages home. We have 50 people that were taken from their houses, from their private life on a Saturday holiday morning. And, from the 50, we know there is 20 or maybe even 21 alive. And it's crucial that we'll get all of the people alive back home immediately. And with us, we have today Dalia Cusnir, the sister-in-law of Eitan Cusnir, Eitan Horn, and also the sister-in-law of Iair Horn. Both brothers were taken from Kibbutz Nir Oz on October 7th from their private home and Iair was brought home back in February 2025. And unfortunately, Eitan is still in there. Eitan is the youngest brother of these three brothers, and he's suffering like all hostages, and his health and mental and health situation is very, very bad. And this is the reason we wanted to talk to Dalia today. Dalia, thank you for joining us for this evening.
Hi, Shalom. Thank you for this invitation and all the people who are attending this webinar. Thank you.
And Dalia, do we know anything about the recent developments? We hear that President Trump is putting some pressure in order to bring the hostages home. Do we know anything from recent developments? What do we expect from the next coming days? There is some like optimism coming out from DC, but not really. I don't want to say optimism from the Israeli side because they're sending those mixed signals all the times.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying that we don't know more than whoever is here on this conversation. We don't get any specific information. All we know is from the news, and we heard President Trump, and we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu is flying to Washington next week, and maybe a delegation of the negotiation team is going to leave to Cairo, to Egypt, in the next upcoming days. We do know that there is a small window of opportunities, and we understand it because after you just mentioned the Iran war and the amazing success Israel had over there, at least according to what they say. And we understand that this is an historical moment, that we need to seize this opportunity and leverage all those, all this success into a hostage deal that will bring an end to the war, as you mentioned. So this is where our hope lies as for now, and we're trying to apply all the pressure we can worldwide, in Israel, in Washington, D.C., wherever.
And unfortunately, you also have to deal with some political pressure back here home. This is something that I'm sure you were not planning to do back in your previous life, to maneuver between politics, but this is part of the problem, is that it's all engaged Israeli politics. Can you tell us a bit about that?
We as a family decided that this is not a political issue, and we're not gonna go and play that game. For us, we have only one call and one demand, and it's bring Eitan and all the hostages back. And as a family, we've promised that we're gonna be on the streets fighting wherever it takes until the last hostage. This is not just like our family issue, it's
Right.
the entire 50 hostages. We're part of the Israeli society, and we want them all back. We understand that Prime Minister Netanyahu has done two hostage deals in the past, and he knows how to do it. And we understand that the 50 hostages are just one decision away. That's it. And it's possible to just, declare tonight. He doesn't even have to wait until he goes to Washington, D.C. next week. I guess he will wait, but we know that it can happen this night if Prime Minister wants it. And this is our call. Just finish the thing and bring them all back in one deal without any, list and separation and having to choose and all these horrible things that we know.
Okay. So your family, your small and your family, which you've been part of it for all of your life, has been dealing with this double situation where you have one brother that was brought home in February after around 15 or 16 months of being held captive as a civilian in Gaza, held by the terrorists. And you need as a family to work about his recovery and think about his nutrition and about his well-being and about his psychological situation and help him. And then the worst worry, I mean, the biggest worry is about Eitan, another brother who's still held captive. And we all had to see, and you had to see, the video of their saying goodbye in the tunnel, which was I think one of the hardest moments for everybody to watch. Can you tell us about this dual situation?
So since October 7th, we've been fighting for the release of all the hostages, and of course we had the double problem because both siblings of my husband Amos were abducted from Iair's home in Kibbutz Nir Oz. And we've been fighting and going all around the world, especially to Washington, D.C., to work with Dana's amazing team over there and to do everything we can. And then on the deal of January, February, we got the message that Iair is going to be released. We don't know exactly why Iair was released and Eitan not. We understand that it might be because of Iair suffers from diabetes. So we understand that it might be the reason why they put him in the humanitarian list. On the other hand, Eitan has a worse disease than diabetes. Eitan suffers from hidradenitis suppurativa in the stage Harley 3, which is the highest stage, and it's very like a life-threatening disease. So we don't understand exactly why and what. It doesn't matter as for now. When we got the message, it was Friday, February 14th. I think it was like 1 p.m. We got a phone call from the officer saying that Hamas just published the 3 names of the hostages that would be released on Saturday, February 15th. It was a huge joy and at the same time a very big pain, understanding that it's only 1 out of 2, and of course there's so many others who are staying behind. And when Iair came back, and I remember the moment I first hugged him at the hospital, I think there's a picture in the PowerPoint if you want to show Bianca or Giovanni. I remember hugging him and crying like I can't remember when was the last time I cried like this. And I felt like someone who was buried, because they were literally buried. They were held underground since day 1 for 498 days. And he's coming back to life, you know, like from hell coming back to life. And it was a huge joy, but at the same time, I felt like we cannot be very happy. And for the first few days, we were kind of trying to understand, how do we deal with this situation? Like, do we do, you know, El Chaim, like do we do something special because we're happy he's back and he's alive? But on the same time, it is very painful to feel and understand that everything we do, like if we eat something special, if we do something special, so Eitan is left behind. And I want to say that for me, the worst part was that Saturday. He was released around noon. I think it was like evening before trying to go back to sleep. Just if you move a few slides further where I'll go back to these pictures later on more. Yeah, keep going. I'll tell you when to stop. Sorry for that. This is like the first day. This is the picture. These are the pictures when he arrived to the hospital. You can see the one wearing the sunglasses is Amos, my husband, and then the 2 kids are my kids, and the woman, she's their mother, Iair's and Amos and Eitan's mom. So I was telling you about that moment. That evening, it was still Saturday, and Iair calls me to the room and closed the door and says, "What do I have to do?" And I said, "What do you mean? You need to eat. You need to go through all the medical tests and to see what's going on." He came back very, very weak. He lost lots of weight. He had still suffered from a few physical problems. And he said, "No, what do I have to do to bring all the rest?" You know, he told me, you know, there are still living people there. Eitan is there, but many others. I need to bring them back. Tell me what to do. And I told him, no, you need to go and rest. You need to take a few days. Don't worry, we've been fighting for you since October 7th. We'll continue doing it. And he said, you know, you look at me and you think I'm here in Ichilov at the Tel Aviv hospital, but I'm not. My body is here, but I'm still in Gaza. My heart, my soul, I'm still in prison. I need you to release me. And it was a very powerful moment because he sits there and he's free. How come he's asking me to, release him? But I think that has been the situation since then. And Yair has been going all around the world in this.
Yeah, Dalia, we will go back to Yair's work around the world, but I want also to go back to the slides. I want the slides to flip through as I ask you to tell us about Eitan, because as I've been telling you just before we started this webinar, the Israeli public is learning about the people that were taken hostages by, this is just by chance. I mean, no one could predict who will stay alive and who will be an hostage. But I just want to say, since it's like, I think almost 21 months, we as the Israeli public, I feel personally that I miss them. I never met Eitan, but I miss him. I want to know him. I want him back, obviously, in his home with his family. So maybe you can introduce us to someone we already miss, and we cry for their return. Maybe you can tell us a bit about the person, about his life. What was he doing?
Of course. So I'll start by saying that Eitan is one of the most funniest people I know. And more than funny, he has a huge heart. Is like that guy that is always there and he smiles and he hugs you and he says, Yalla, yeh beseder, it will be okay. I don't think I ever saw him, like to each problem he's going to find a solution that starts with smiling. So I'll go even back and I'll say that Yair is the oldest, then Amos, my husband, then Eitan is the youngest. The three of them were born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is the picture. The one in the middle is Amos, my husband. I must admit that I haven't seen him smile like this since October 7th. And I just want him to smile again. And the guy on the right is Eitan, and on the left is Yair. Born and raised in Argentina, Jewish day school, youth movement, very Zionist, very connected to Israel. Don't move the slides. It's like the second part. So very connected to Israel, and it was obvious for them that as soon as they can, they move to Israel. So Yair graduates high school, moved to Israel. Then Amos graduates high school, moved to Israel. And then Eitan understands that he was left alone. And when he's 16, he moved to Israel, joining a program called Naale to just finish their high school in Israel. And then the three of them, in their time, they joined the army and they started working, building their life here in Israel. They're very connected. They're very good friends among each other.
And how old is Eitan?
Eitan is 38 now. When I started dating Amos, I thought I was just dating Amos, but very soon I discovered that I
cannot hear Dalia. Can you hear Dalia?
Yeah, we hear Dalia.
Yeah.
Okay, so I missed the how old is Eitan?
Eitan is 38. And I was saying that I married Amos, but I got two other brothers at the same package, and they are amazing. Eitan is an educator. Eitan worked as a non-formal educator in many youth villages and youth programs, and he worked with teens at risk. And when the war with Ukraine broke in Israel, brought many teens, refugees from Ukraine, he applied to work in this special place, like kind of a boarding school where they brought them. And I remember he called me because I work for the Jewish agency, and it was a Jewish agency program. So he called me and he said, Dalia, I applied for this job in case they call you to ask for recommendations. And I said, well, Eitan, it sounds amazing, but you don't speak the language. You don't speak Ukrainian nor Russian. And he was so serious, and he said, Dalia, I mean, I don't understand your question. Those kids are running away from a war. It doesn't matter the language. I'm going to be there for them. And that's Eitan. He's that guy that is always there. He dances, he sings. He's the most amazing uncle to my kids. If you ask my kids, they'll say that he's the world champion of hide and seek. That's his thing. It's just a man who believes in good and wants to do good in this world. You know, he believes in teens and in young people, and
when the three when the three brothers meet, they speak Spanish with each other.
Yeah.
They don't, you know, they have their own, I suppose, their own, and they're all they are all fans of the same soccer group in Southern Israel.
Exactly. So they're Argentinians, so it has to involve soccer, of course, and they're big fans of Hapoel Beersheva, which is like the biggest team of the southern part of Israel. And they go all around to watch their games. And actually, this picture was taken, I think, at the airport in Israel before flying to see the other love they have, which is the Rolling Stones band. So they would like do siblings weekends all the time, either for the Hapoel Beersheva games or the Rolling Stones. And they really love having quality time together.
And when Iair was out, one of his first, you know, request was that for the military chopper to fly above the stadium, right, of his soccer team, Beersheva, and you all wearing the red clothes for his release. This how, just to understand to our audience how big it is, this activity of the three of them together.
And Hapoel Beersheva was very involved, as all the soccer teams, I must admit, in Israel. They were very involved, and they're still involved in all the struggle.
So, you know, the soccer teams and the sports team in Israel are trying to do their best to help. And with respect to groups and people that are trying to do their best to help and assist in this situation, I will take it now for one question to Dana, who is here with us. And she is working in the United States on behalf of the groups. Maybe you can tell us a bit about your work, and also for our audience, what do you think people in their homes or outdoors, you know, wherever they want, what can they do to get this, you know, great cause of our lives to bring those hostages back home? What can they do for that?
So first of all, hi. Thank you very much for having me. So basically, we've been on October 7th, we were a group of friends, a group of Israeli friends in New York and in DC, realizing what is happening. And very quickly, we formed the U.S. Hostages Forum, which mainly we work in New York and in DC, because we very quickly understood that these are the main areas, and especially since President Trump has taken office, the United States has been the most important ally. It has been the most important ally since October 7th, but especially since President Trump has made it very clear that releasing all of the hostages is extremely important to him. Washington, D.C. has been our main focus since President Trump has taken office. We've been doing petitions, gathering, delegations, events, rallies, displays, everything that we can do to make this still in the public's attention. We hold about 2 delegations a month, especially in Washington, D.C., meeting with members of Congress, meeting with people from the United States, meeting with the White House officials. I think at this point, family members and released hostages have met every single person who has some sort of role in Washington, D.C., because at this point, what we are trying to do, we are trying to make this that nobody will forget about this issue, that people will continue to talk about this, that people will keep this top of mind until all 50 of them will be home. We have obviously seen progress, but with this issue, the full progress is only when all of them are home, right? It's
Exactly.
many people say to us, oh, but we started with 250 people and now we have 50 hostages that are still there. But for us, success of this whole thing is only when all of them are home. So we are still here. We're doing everything that we still can. We right now have a delegation in DC, and we are preparing for next week for Bibi Netanyahu's visit. We are very, very hopeful that something will happen next week. We are very, again, as Dalia said in the beginning, we know what everybody knows, but we are very hopeful that something big will happen next week.
Okay.
Um,
I'll get back to you later. I want to go back to Dalia. And Dalia, ask you, how is Yair doing since he was released in February? It's been, I think, less than 5 months, very short time. I mean, less than the time that he was held captured. And, I know he's been traveling a lot. Maybe you can tell us about that, but also how does he personally feels?
So Yair refuses to go through rehabilitation. And there's like this procedure in Israel because many hostages, living hostages, luckily came back and were released by these hostage deals. And there's kind of this protocol of the things they have to go through. And he just refuses because he says that he's going to feel like he can really start rehabilitation once Eitan and all the rest will be home. So this is the first challenge, because someone who was 498 days underneath the ground has to go through rehabilitation, not only mental, but also physical. I just share a small example without going into his privacy. He came back with a problem in his vision. He's not seeing well. And the doctor came and did some tests and said, you know what, you should use glasses. And he said, okay, I never wore glasses before. I never had this problem. Maybe there's something else. And the doctor said, I can't find any other thing. And then Yair looks at the doctor and says, have you ever treated someone who was held underneath the ground with barely no light for 498 days? And the doctor was silent and he said, you're right. We, the modern, medicine, we just don't know how to deal with that. So small things like staying and being able to stand in the sun, when you see him standing at the sun, you see how he enjoys it in a different way than we, the free people, are enjoying it. And small things as, I don't know, feeling that you want to eat something and being able to open the fridge and just grab something to eat or drink clean water. He still till today, as you said, 5 months later, it still amazes him, the fact that he can just have water whenever he wants.
And let me just stress for the people who do not understand, this is a very hot time in the region here. The temperature in Israel and in Gaza is very, very high. And they were held underground in the tunnels for last summer in horrible condition, huge humidity and high temperature, because in the tunnels, it's much more humid than outdoors. And can you imagine? I'm sure pretty much that was one of the biggest problems was being held in a tunnel. It's horrific to think about that.
Yeah,
So
and
now that
having to
he's-
move all the time and the tunnel collapsing on you and having no food and torture and starvation. And they had dirty water, salty water. They have very small water, but it was not clean water. So all of these together combined, but instead of taking care of himself since day one, I think it was Dalia Cusnir, it was like 10 days after he was released that we put them on an airplane because we understood that there's a small opportunity, there's a small chance that they'll be able to meet President Trump. And as Dana mentioned before, we understand that he is the one responsible for that deal where Yair was released.
So 10 days after he was out on mid-February, I think. 10 days later.
I think it was February 25. I must admit that it was 5 days after Omer Shem Tov was released. So Yair had 10 days, Omer Shem Tov had only 5.
And they were on an airplane to DC to meet with the US president. That's unbelievable, the effort that they put in. And since then, he's been like
I'll
Feel
add
for-
that trip, that visit, it was 8 very recently released hostages, 8 of them. It was very adamant that it was extremely important for all 8 of them. As Dalia said, Omer was released, I think, probably 5 days before. Also, Keith Siegel was part of that group. Doron Steinbach and Naama Levi, Eli Sharabi, they were very, very recently released, but they all understood that meeting President Trump, and it was very important for all 8 of them to stress how important it is to release all of the people who were still there. Then there was more than 50 hostages in captivity then, but it just shows how deeply they understand how that every single minute is crucial, and that all of them will not be able to rehabilitate and move on with their lives until these people are home. Until all 50 hostages are home, the released hostages will not be able to rehabilitate. They've said this multiple times, and Dalia and I have seen this. They cannot just move on with their lives. They will do anything. They will cross any bridge possible to make sure that the world is aware of it, and they will meet every person who is significant to make that happen.
So I just want to stress, those are incredible photos that we see, because those hostages that, went on a plane and flew to the United States to meet the US president did not meet at that time, or maybe even later, the Israeli prime minister or ministers. So many of them have only met the American politicians, and in Israel, some of those meetings did not go through, or they didn't want to, or later on, or the prime minister did not call them, or ministers did not call them. So it's unbelievable for those of you listening here that the engagement with the US political scene, sometimes, it's more, the engagement is much more than whatever is going on right here in Israel. It's one of those things that happens during this era. I don't know. It's sad, but this is the situation. Dalia, but
can I add something very small about the work of Dana and the Hostage Forum in New York and Washington, D.C.? We are all aware that so many things are going around the world as we speak, like tons of events every single minute. And I think, or at least I thought, that it's almost impossible to keep something as top priority for so long. It's been 635 days that Dana, Matan, and all the team are able to keep this thing as top priority inside the White House and the Congress and the State Department. And it's not even a US problem, it's something that happens to us here in Israel. So I just want to say it because I think that the fact that the team in the US, which most of them are Israelis, that just woke up one day and understood that they need to fight this fight with us, but they're based in US. So I always find it so amazing and emotional to see what they're doing for them. It's not even for us, it's for them, for the 50 hostages who are held underground. And I think that they are really heroes, because they're doing something that I think you're coming from the media. I think it's almost impossible to keep something for so long on top of the news all the time.
Dalia, when we saw the footage of Eitan and Iair together for a minute or two in the tunnel, we could tell that Eitan lost a lot of weight and obviously is not healthy. Do you know, what can you tell us about his personal situation? I mean, all of the hostages lost so much weight. It's, oh my God, this photo is just killing me. It's very hard to watch, and they are obviously very pale, and eyes are sunken, and it's very hard to watch. What else do you know that you can share?
So this video was released exactly a week after Iair was released, and I must admit that I was kind of prepared to watch this video, because a few days before we had a conversation with Iair, and he asked me if the Hamas had published videos of them before, and I said that no, and he said, wow, that's strange, because they filmed us like 800 times. So I knew in the back of my mind that there are some videos, and then it was released, and as you said, it was it was devastating to see this moment. I'll give you the story behind the scenes. So Iair and Sagi are being released on a Saturday. They're being taken out a few days before Saturday. 4 days before, the terrorists are coming to them. They were a group of 5 hostages. 3 are still in
Obviously,
there. One of them,
Sagi
Sagi Dekel, yes.
for those of you who doesn't know, is an American citizen and
Abducted
he
from
was also
Niroz as well.
Niroz and also released at the same time after so many days in captivity.
Yeah, so a few days before the release, the terrorists are coming to the group of the 5 hostages and they're telling them that in 3 days, 2 of you are gonna get released. You need to choose. And then they left. And they're staying at the door, at the small room next door in the tunnel. Everything is trapped with explosives, so it's not like they have nowhere to go. And Iair says that they are sitting for 3 days. They barely close their eyes because they're talking and deciding who is gonna be released. So Iair is telling Eitan that he should get released because he's very sick with the severe skin disease. The conditions are horrible. He gets no medicine. And, you know, Iair is the oldest sibling. Eitan is the youngest. So usually, like, the oldest takes care of the youngest. And he says, you should get released. And Eitan says, no, Sagi should get released because Sagi had a bullet in his shoulder and a severe wound in his leg, and Sagi has 2 daughters, and they all knew that his wife was pregnant. I think she was like 7 or 8 months pregnant during the 7th of October attack. And, you know, they had this discussion and everyone is saying why he should stay, but the other one should get released. And he said, and I'm sorry for this, but that's the real phrase, he said, we were playing to be Judenrat for 3 days. And then they just come, they take Iair and Sagi. There was never a question. We, the 3 people in Israel, knew the list. So they just take the 2 of them and then they make them say goodbye and they tell Eitan which text to say exactly, and they film this horrible video. And maybe one last thing about that video is that Iair goes around the world with a picture of that hug and he says, please help me. So this hug is not going to be the last one. I want to hug my brother again, once again.
Wow.
And that's the mission.
It's very tough. Dana, before we take it to audience questions after this really devastating photo, please tell us, what can the public do? Those of us who are not in DC, not in New York, do not have a political influence. You know, sometimes we sit in the homes, we have computer, we have means. What steps can we take to help this dire situation come to an end?
So all of you have a lot of power from your very own private homes. The first thing we ask is to continue to write to the White House, to your local officials, that we need to make this top of mind. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. There's a lot of stuff going on in the US, but it's important for us we do these delegations, we do these meetings repeatedly to make sure that this issue, this hostages crisis, is the top of mind of everybody in the US and the entire administrations. And we need everybody's help to keep this pressure going. Write to your local officials, write to the White House, write to the Congress, write to the Senate. I think probably most of you already know how exactly to do it. In order to write to the White House, there's even it's very simple. You literally Google, how do I contact the White House? How do I contact Congress? It's very, very simple. So you can do it. I'm happy to send the links, but I'm sure all of you know how to contact the White House and your local officials. Another way to help is continue to advocate this on your social media, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media it is. Continue to advocate this issue, continue to advocate their stories. What usually we recommend for everybody is find one of the hostages, one or two of the hostages that you relate to the most, that you find their story that you resonate with the most, and continue and follow their pages. If you even do the words bring on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, you'll see the main Bring Them Home page and then all the individual pages. Follow these pages, and then you just need to reshare on your stories, on your in Twitter, whatever. Continue to reshare. Make sure people talk about this. Put stickers wherever you are, whether you live in a small town or in a big city. Put stickers, posters of the hostages. Can you continue to talk about this with people from work, family, whatever it is? You never know who has some sort of influence. And show up to the events. If you have, show up to these Zoom meetings, show up to gatherings, show up to rallies. It's important that people continue to show up, that people continue to show that this matters, that we as humans, this is not about politics. This is about human beings, innocent human beings who have been held in hell for far too long, and we need to bring them back. So show up and show to the families, show to everybody in the world that you will not rest until all of them are home, and show to the families that they're not alone.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. Part of the deal that is on the table as we speak right now is to release 10 hostages. It means that at least 10 more people that are alive are going to stay in the tunnels. And it means that even if the White House announced this Monday that we have a deal, it's a partial deal. And we don't know if Eitan will be home. And this is scary because we need to make sure that 50 people, 20 or 21 of them, are getting out immediately and not, partial deals. This is not a deal. This is people's life. So that's a big issue because we cannot get tired over here or there from working on making sure that all 20 or 21 are out. And also, I just wanted to say that as we speak right now, there is an announcement from the White House that the American Israeli citizen Eitan Alexander will meet Trump tomorrow in the White House. So Eitan was actually in the same class in school with my daughter in Israel while he was in Israel for several years as a young junior in when he was like around 12 or 13. And so we knew him personally, and I think the meeting by itself, this is something important because once the president meets Eitan and others, it picks up the attention, the worldwide attention to Eitan and to the others. So I'm pretty sure, I hope that, Eitan will speak about the rest of them, but it will bring it to the cameras. So that's another thing that is taking place tomorrow, hopefully. And Dalia, did you want to say anything else before we take questions from the audience? Okay, so Tali, how do we take the questions? Do you have them?
Yes. So there was one question. I wonder if you guys, people are wondering, how do we know which hostages, what's the status of the hostages? How do we know who's alive, who isn't? Have you heard lately about Eitan situation?
So I can explain. So since the beginning, well, not at the beginning, but a few weeks after everything started, we didn't know what happened to Eitan and Iair for a long time. We just knew that they disappeared. It was October 7th. They told us that they're at the safe room at 6:30 in the morning. And then since 7:30 in the morning, we just knew nothing else. And I think it was around noontime that my husband takes the car keys and he says, I'm driving there. Now we live in Kfar Saba, which is in the center of Israel. And I tell him, no, you don't. And he says, something bad had happened to my brothers. I need to save them. And I tell him, like I was crying. I could not understand what's going on all around me. And there were missiles coming And I told them, please don't go, because if you look at the television, it looks like whoever goes is not coming back. I don't want my kids to be orphans. And he was like holding to the car keys saying, I need to save them. If something would have happened to your brothers, wouldn't you do everything you can to save them? And my answer was, I would, but you have to stay home, you know? And for a month and a half, we knew nothing about them until the first hostage deal, November 25th. The woman and the kids were released, and they told us that Iair and Eitan are alive, that Iair and Eitan are at the tunnels. And the most amazing thing was that the fact that they were not injured, because the safe room door was full with bullet holes. So we didn't know what's their situation. So since then, the Israeli intelligence here and there is getting some information and sharing with the families. We know that Eitan is considered to be alive. The last time someone saw him was February 15th, when Iair and Sagi were released.
2025.
2025.
So
Since
5
then,
months ago.
5 months ago. But we do know that he's considered to be alive. Within the group that you mentioned, 20, 21, 22, depends who you're asking. It's most of the people that they have proof of life in the past few months. And then we have 2 hostages that unfortunately we know nothing about them since October 8th, which one of them is Tamir Nimrodi. And I'm very close to the family, and it's horrible. They saw a video of him on October 8th. He was abducted walking. He's a soldier taken from the office, from the base. He was literally walking. They took him walking, so he was not even injured. But since then, they know nothing about him. The army and the intelligence, they get some information so they can tell who was abducted alive, who was abducted after being killed. And unfortunately, we have more than 41 hostages in total, not in the 50 that we have today, that were killed during their time in Gaza, whether because of the killing of the Hamas, but many of them, unfortunately, were killed because of the military pressure. So we saw Eli Sharabi coming back and being released, but we know that Yossi Sharabi, his brother, was killed because of a bombing of an
And he was
Israeli
alive for like 5 months. So
Yes.
or 4 months. So we're talking about 41 people who were taken alive, which we knew were alive. Some of them were shot on videos, but yet on January 24 or February 24 were murdered by Hamas or killed by the result of military activities. That's important to understand, and their bodies being held.
Yes,
as
so
this
I'll go back
person.
to the question, the 2021 living hostages. We do hope, I believe, I know Eitan is alive, I know that. But, you know, it can change from today to tomorrow, because the tunnel where he's being held can be bombed by the Israeli army, and it can fall on him, something that happened in the past. But Iair saved his life. He grabbed him, literally grabbed him from his arm and carried him because he was not able to run. So maybe now that Iair is not there, there's no one to grab him from the arm and save his life. So this is why we keep on saying that time is of essence. And we used to say in Hebrew that they don't have time, but this phrase is not working anymore. Like, their time was, you know, it ran out a long time ago. And yeah.
Okay.
And I see some questions. I guess people are a bit confused about, are we advocating for any deal, for a partial deal? Are we advocating to get them all out? People are confused about that. I mean, I guess we want them all out, but what is the stance of the families? What is the stance of your family?
I mean, I think if you ask all the families, we all want the one deal that will bring them all together. We used to say, you know, in one bus, one deal that will bring them all together. I want to say something very personal, and I said that I'm not going to go into politics, but it's not even politics, it's being a human being. I want this war in Gaza to end, because today we lost another Israeli soldier, a kid, 18-year-old kid from Rehovot, who fell today, and there's another one who was with him who is severely injured, and his life is at risk. Now in the hospital, they're struggling, the doctors, to save him. So I want this war to be over, not because of Eitan and the hostages, not only because of the Israeli soldiers. I want a mother my age in Gaza to be able to dream and have a better future for her kids, because I believe that the same way I deserve to have my kids and to grow up my kids in a safe environment, she also deserves on the other side. But we understand that the key solution for all this problem is by releasing the hostages. This is why we're advocating and shouting and saying and whispering that we need to bring them back, and then we'll be able to see the day after and talk about whatever will be the reconstruction of the Israeli society, but also the reconstruction of Gaza, because you saw the situation in Gaza. It has to be reconstructed in a way that Hamas is not going to be part of the deal. Now, if you ask me, do we advocate for a partial deal? No, we advocate for a full deal. Do we, and now I'll talk as Dalia, and maybe Dana can add some more, share more light on this topic. I understand that it has to start somewhere, and dynamic of a deal can bring to more and more and more. And if I'll be realistic, I'll say that I think that Hamas won't release them all together. So it will be in parts. I wish not, but this is the reality. And for me, each life that is being saved, as the Talmud says, is a whole world. So if you look at the January and February deal, it was meant to be like a longer deal. But because of different things, they could not make it to negotiate phase B and phase C. And now that they're talking about this Witkoff proposal, so once again, it's a full thing. But the first part is, I think, releasing 8 hostages on the first day, and then on day number 50, which is crazy to imagine, 50 more days in hell, 2 more hostages, and of course, negotiating all the rest. So we shout one deal and a hostage deal, not rescue operation, and then we understand that we get whatever we get, and we save lives. I think that's for me. Dana, you can say it better.
No, I think you said it exactly. We're advocating for one deal that will bring all of them. But if that's what we are advocating for, but we obviously, if they are off, what would they come to an agreement of is right now a partial deal, and then to renegotiate, we will accept it. We will never be against people getting released and people being back home. We embrace every single person that is brought back home. But but we are advocating for one deal that will bring all of them home.
But the Israeli public will, and it's important for me to say that as a general public, the Israeli public will be demanding to get everybody out.
Yes.
Plus, the Israeli public will also ask for the bodies of the people that were murdered. This is something that cannot, as the Jewish halacha wants to see people in their own resting place. And this country, the people of this country, will never let go of any person who stays behind. Obviously, the living one is top priority, of course, beyond everything. And again, all political polls that are being conducted on a regular basis here in Israel see the Israeli public voting or saying between 65 to 70% have them all back in exchange for the end of the war. So people are willing to stop this war in exchange for all hostages. That's very, very important to understand, because some people in the government do not represent the majority of the people.
Yeah, and I just want to add something about the deceased hostages. I know so many families that they've been told that their loved ones are not alive, but they still have this small hope because no one saw the body, so they just got some footage or some information, but they're not really there. So it's not even families of deceased hostages, it's families that just have no clue what happened to their loved
Yeah,
ones.
people missing
And
in
they
action.
want and they want to bring them back. And we have people who are, it's called delayed mourn, that like they know, families who do know that their loved ones are not alive, they cannot do Shiva, they cannot move on until, this is why we're struggling for each and every one of them, all the 50, and we will not stop, because we know in the Jewish history that when the Jews left Egypt, in the story of the Exodus, one of the main things they took is the bones of the deceased Jews that lived there before, and until today we need to bring them back, and those families also deserve to close this circle. So that's the story of the 50, all of them, each and every one is an entire world.
Right. Tali, do we have time for one more question, or do we need to wrap it up?
I think there's just one more comment, maybe for you, Dana, since we have people here from all over. One viewer suggested, should we have a global event for the hostages? So
I don't know what it means to have a global event. We've tried to do we've done a few events that we also streamed it live over the past 2 years, and we've done events like happening in DC and in New York, and streamed it live to Israel. But I mean, yes, possibly. I mean, we're open to any idea that we haven't yet thought of. Maybe, yeah, an idea.
So I just want to thank you again, Tal, Dalia, Dana. Thank you so much for being here today. Dalia, thank you so much for telling us your story. It was touching, and we hope Eitan will be back home soon, and Iair can start his recovery. We'll be there together with you and all the other families until everybody returns. And for the viewers, I just want to add, I want to remind you, we have another webinar this Sunday. This Sunday, we're going to talk about how Israeli academia and healthcare have been dealing with the recent rocket attacks, and generally about the war that started 635 days ago. So this will be this Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Please look for that announcement in your inbox. We're building a community to put the hostages and other issues on the public agenda. So please make sure to join our community in the US and beyond. Spread the word and connect with us. We've put also links for donations for the Hostage Family Forum here in the US and in Israel. So please help us support them. We know, like Tal mentioned multiple times, that Am Yisrael isn't the same and won't be able to recover from this ordeal until they're all home. So with that hope that everybody returns soon, and I hope that we'll get some good news from Trump and Bibi's visit next week. I'll say goodbye to everyone, and thank you again for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Toda rabba.
Very much. Thank you.